All right, so we're diving into something kind of different this time. Jesus's second preaching tour.
This one's really interesting.
Yeah, it's laid out in the Urantia book, right?
Right, yeah.
And we're talking excerpts from paper 149.
Yes.
And, I think when we think about, spreading a message back then, we think about, like, the sandals and sermons, just wandering around.
Yeah, lone voice in the wilderness.
Exactly. But this was a full-blown operation. It spanned 3 months, multiple cities, involved over 100 people.
It's more like an ancient marketing campaign when you think about it.
Seriously, it was meticulously planned and executed.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to consider the historical context. We're talking roughly 28 A.D.
Okay.
Galilee, under Roman rule, already a political and religious pressure cooker,
Yeah.
right? And then you've got the Pharisees, known for their strict interpretation of Jewish law. They were already eyeing Jesus with suspicion.
Oh, yeah, they must have seen this massive tour and been like, okay, this is getting out of hand.
Precisely. This wasn't just about the scale. It was about the message itself.
Right.
This is a time when challenging the established religious order, that's a risky move.
To put it mildly.
Yeah.
So imagine the scene, dusty roads, bustling crowds, and at the heart of it all, Jesus and his disciples trying to spread this message that was, well, pretty revolutionary for the time.
Absolutely. And it must have taken incredible organization to pull it off.
Yeah, for sure.
And the Urantia book actually highlights this.
Okay.
It mentions David Zebedee, one of the apostles, essentially acting as a project manager, coordinating travel routes, managing supplies, making sure everyone was on message.
Wow. So, like, if they had papyrus spreadsheets back then, he'd be like, the guy with the stylus,
Absolutely, yeah. I can just picture it.
Keeping everyone on track.
But what's remarkable is that this logistical feat wasn't just about efficiency. It was about reaching as many people as possible with this message of love and compassion.
In a world that desperately needed it.
Precisely.
And they often delivered that message in ways that directly challenged the norms of the time, which I think brings us to this whole unconscious healing thing. Unconscious healing. That sounds a little, I don't know, like out there, even for us. So how did this work? How does even Jesus heal people without realizing it? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's definitely one of the more fascinating things we find in the Urantia book, right?
Yeah.
So picture this. People are being healed just by being near Jesus.
Wow.
But the Urantia book says even Jesus didn't always know what was happening. It wasn't always on purpose. More like just him being there was enough.
Okay, so it's not like he's walking into a room thinking, all right, time to heal. It's more subtle, I guess.
Very much so. And the Urantia book doesn't claim to have all the answers, but it offers some clues.
Okay.
It suggests there were 3 main ingredients for this unconscious healing to work.
3 ingredients, huh? All right, I'm listening. Lay it on me. What were they?
First, the person had to have real strong faith. But, and this is important, the Urantia book says it wasn't just about getting their body healed. It went deeper.
Deeper? How?
They longed for, like, spiritual wholeness, this desire to connect to something bigger.
Not just, my knee hurts, fix it, but more like, my soul hurts, help me.
Exactly. And this deep desire, this yearning, it seems to have made them open, receptive to this healing power that the Urantia book says flowed from Jesus.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. But faith alone doesn't cure everything, does it? Something more must have been happening.
Exactly. That's where the second ingredient comes in. Jesus' own compassion, deep compassion, and what the Urantia book calls his creative power.
Right. He wasn't just being nice. He had the, like, metaphysical ability too.
Exactly. We're talking about a being who, according to the Urantia book, was deeply, deeply connected to the divine, with a unique ability for healing.
So you've got the person's faith, Jesus' own compassion and power. What's the third thing? This is where it gets really interesting, right?
It is. The Urantia book suggests it's the combination of those 2 things, human desire meeting divine will, that allowed for these healings to happen. Like a circuit, almost.
Wow. So if this kind of healing was possible back then, I mean, what could be possible now? What does this say about our own faith, our own potential,
Those are fantastic questions, and they've fascinated people for centuries. Makes you think, right, about belief and the mysteries of healing.
For sure.
But while Jesus' ability to heal was amazing, we can't forget, he wasn't just there to fix bodies. He challenged societal norms, too.
Oh, yeah. And one of the biggest examples of that has to be his treatment of women, which was radical for the time. I mean, we're talking about a time when women were basically, second-class citizens, right?
It was a patriarchal society, for sure.
And Jesus just turns that on its head.
Completely. The Urantia book talks about how he included women as disciples,
Wow, really?
teachers even. He sent them out to spread his message, unheard of back then.
Yeah, I'm gonna say.
In fact, the Urantia book says, get this, rabbinical law at the time thought it was better that the words of the law should be burned than delivered to women.
They would rather burn their holy texts than have a woman teach them.
That's how deeply ingrained it was.
Wow. So Jesus is out there saying, nope, these women are my equals. They're going to teach alongside me. Bold move.
Incredibly bold. And it wasn't just about rocking the boat, it was deeper.
Right.
The Urantia book shows us Jesus as this embodiment of love and compassion, right? Everyone deserved respect, gender, status, didn't matter.
So by saying women are equal, he's actually trying to lift up everyone.
Exactly. And this connects to a big theme with Jesus, actually. It wasn't about rigid dogma. It was lived experience, compassion, love. That's the guide.
It's like he was saying, you're so busy following all these rules, you forgot what it's really about. Love, compassion, that's the heart of it all.
Yes. He challenged the status quo constantly. Look inward, he said. Find that connection to the divine. Let love drive you.
Which, honestly, we could use a little more of that today, don't you think?
Timeless message, absolutely. And speaking of timeless, want to dive into some specific teachings?
Yeah, let's do it.
The Urantia book gives some really practical advice, even now, on things like anger, contentment, fear.
Those are big ones even thousands of years later. Let's start with anger. We've all felt it. But I'm guessing Jesus had a more, shall we say, evolved take on it.
You could say that. The Urantia book says anger's like spiritual friction, out of alignment with ourselves. And the damage isn't just to others, it eats us up inside.
Holding on to anger is like, what's that saying? Holding on to a hot coal. You're the one who gets burned. So how do we deal with it according to Jesus?
Well, the Urantia book says he told his followers to fight anger with love.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Right. But not just any love, deep, abiding love for each other.
Because anger, a lot of times, it comes from fear, right? Feeling threatened. But love, real compassion, that means seeing beyond ourselves, seeing that shared humanity.
Exactly. And that takes effort.
Right.
Looking past our own ego, connecting to something bigger, which actually leads us to another teaching, contentment.
Yeah.
In our world of instant gratification, always comparing ourselves, finding contentment's tough.
Oh, tell me about it. We're constantly chasing the next thing, the next dopamine hit. What did Jesus say about all that?
It's interesting. The Urantia book talks about how he told his followers to find joy in the present, appreciate what you have now. But, and this is important, he didn't mean just settle.
Okay, good.
He was still all about striving, growing, making the most of what we've got, but from a place of peace, not this constant sense of, I need more.
Find joy now, but still reach for more. Man, that's a tough needle to thread. What about fear, then? That can really paralyze us.
Big time. The Urantia book actually says Jesus tackled that head on, especially the fear of God, which was huge back then.
Oh, for sure. So what did he have to say about that?
The Urantia book is very clear. God isn't someone to be scared of. He's a loving parent, someone to embrace. And the right response to that kind of God isn't cowering. It's love. Unconditional love.
Powerful stuff. So if our faith, our relationship with the divine isn't about being afraid, what's the foundation?
Love. Plain and simple. Love for, well, everything. The divine, ourselves, everyone. That's where real faith comes from. Courage and, yeah, even that lasting contentment we were talking about.
It's a beautiful idea, isn't it? And it makes you realize, even though it's been thousands of years, what Jesus taught, that core stuff, love, compassion, forgiveness, connecting to something bigger, it matters just as much today.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear Jesus' message wasn't just for some folks in Galilee way back when. It was for everybody. It's for us.
It's a challenge to look inward, live with more compassion, more purpose, and to approach, well, everything, especially our faith, not with fear, but with love. And on that note, we'll let you continue your own deep dive into the Urantia book and the teachings of Jesus. Until next time, keep those questions coming, keep searching, and keep exploring.